I am pleased and honored to introduce our next speaker, who's just a great guy, a very renowned economist. You know, he and Larry Kudlow were primary economic advisors to President Trump. Steve is affiliated also with the Heritage Foundation, as well as some other ventures. He's constantly being interviewed on major television, but is principally Fox News, because the other ones probably aren't interested in a conservative perspective. But Steve is a great guy, extremely busy. He writes every day a short note in terms of, you know, essentially it's hot news. What is it that you call what is it? Hotline. Yeah, hotline. And, you know, it's a paragraph or two or three. It's just absolutely prolific. But just a great guy, a strong and critical member, you know, of our conservative movement. And so I'm really happy to introduce to you Steve Moore.
Thank you so much. Nice. Hello, folks. It is a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. I've met so many nice people. By the way, this is so cool. There are more people in this room, because I think there's about 250, 300 people in here, more people in this room than in the number of people in the entire nation that signed up for CNN+. You know, how do you come up with an idea? Here you have a network that's going bankrupt that people won't watch for free, so they come up with this great idea. Hey, let's charge people to watch our show. All right, I want to have some fun with you. Can I tell just one fun story? Because I did work at the Wall Street Journal, and one of the fun things I got to do at the Journal was once every week we would do a long profile of a famous person, and I did a lot of really, you know, famous political people and athletes and stuff like that. But I thought I'd tell you this because, you know, we're all getting a little long in the tooth, and so I think a lot of you remember this person. How many of you remember Art Linkletter? Raise your hand. Most of you do. So Art Linkletter died a few years ago. But I was very fortunate to do one of the last interviews with Art Linkletter, and he was a charming man. I think that time he was like 91 years old, but really just delightful. And I, you know, drove up to his house. I think he lived up in Hollywood, across the street from, you know, Liz Taylor and so on. And we had a great conversation. And do you all remember his famous his famous TV show, Kids Say the Darndest Things? Remember that? And so, you know, kids really did say the darndest things, and he had so many great stories. I said, well, you know, of all those years you did that show, you know, what's your favorite story? And he said, well, without hesitation, he said, well, one time I brought this little, 7 or 8 year old kid up, this little boy, and while I'm interviewing him, you know, he said, all of a sudden this little boy, he just starts, you know, crying, and the tears are just pouring down his cheeks, and Art Linkletter says to this young boy, says, son, why are you so sad today? And the little boy says, Mr. Linkletter, my dog just died. And Art Linkletter kind of consolingly puts his arm around this little boy's shoulder and says, son, I just want to tell you that you shouldn't be so sad about your dog dying, because I want to tell you something, and please take this to heart. Right now, your dog is up in heaven with God. And so this little boy says, well, Mr. Linkletter, what would God want with a dead dog? I always love that story. Anyway, I thought I'd have a little levity before we get into the serious stuff, which is not such good news. And that is what's happening with the U.S. economy. We are, look, I'll start by putting it like this. If Donald Trump were president today, the U.S. economy would be booming, right? It would be booming. And the stock market would be booming. And it is the reversal of Donald Trump's policies of putting America first. And by the way, what's wrong with that? Bob, what's wrong with putting America first? I mean, isn't that what every president should do? And frankly, this is a president who doesn't put America first. And it shows with these policies. So we have a crash in the stock market. We have a border out of control, crime out of control everywhere, the highest inflation rate in the country, and on and on. And by the way, let me ask you, can you be my focus group this afternoon? How many of you think this is intentional? Raise your hand. You do. I'm not so sure if it is intentional or not, but if it is intentional, to destroy the country. They're doing a pretty good job of it. And so it is a precarious time for our country. And what I want to do is show you some slides. I'm an economist, but I'll try to, so there will be an exam at the end of this, so please keep, and oh, I wanted to mention one other thing. Bob, you mentioned the hotline that we put out. Thank you for mentioning that. Anybody, we now goes up to 200,000 people, and you can just get it. It's free. Unlike the Build Back Better bill, this really is free. It costs you nothing. All you have to do is sign up for it. And just, if you'd like to get it, just send me an email. I'm at smore@freedomworks.org, smore@freedomworks.org, or give me your card as I see you, after the thing, and we'll put you on, and it costs you nothing. But it's very popular, and we talk a lot about the economy, and sometimes it's just a chart, or sometimes it's a humor item, and that kind of thing. And so let's get right down to it. So what is going on with the American economy? You can see from this chart, one of the big things, one of the most important demographic changes that's happening in America that is really changing the face and the power source of America, both politically and economically, is the massive shift of people out of blue state America, run by Democrats, into red state Americans who live in red states. And so you can see here are some of these. By the way, how many of you in this room live in either New York, New Jersey, California, or Illinois? I'm sorry. It's not going so. And by the way, I am from Illinois. And what the left has done and what liberal Democrats have done to the great city of Chicago is heartbreaking. I think Chicago is one of the great cities in the world, and it's no longer a great city. It's been destroyed by bad leadership. But in any case, you can see, and this is something liberals never can. I do these debates all the time with liberal economists who, oh, our model is better than your model, and it doesn't matter if you cut taxes and regulations and so on. And I say, well, really? Doesn't matter. Well, why is it then that everybody is moving to these red states? If your policies are going to create a workers' paradise, then why would people leave? But they're leaving in droves. And you can see this, this is just amazing what's happening with this kind of tidal wave of people out of these blue states. And you can see where by the way, you can see 3 of the states that have had the biggest in-migration of people are Texas, Florida, and Tennessee. Now, what do those 3 states have in common? No income tax, right? No income tax. How many Floridians in this room? A lot of you. You pay no income tax, and I know that's one reason that you're here. But it's the same state with these, North Carolina and Arizona and South Carolina have very low flat rate income tax. And then look at these other states. Look at what's happening. The one that's lost the most second most population, is California. You see New York's lost 1.4 million people on net over the last 10 years. People are voting with their feet against these blue policies. And incidentally, when I debated, any of you know who Paul Krugman is? He writes for the New York Times. He's a big left wing. He actually has a Nobel Prize in economics, which tells you a lot about the Nobel Prize. But I debated him on this stuff, on socialism versus economic freedom and free enterprise. And I said, Paul, you're going to have to explain this to me. Why is it that all these people are leaving the blue states and the red states, and they're going to the red states? And you know what he said? He said, Steve, it's because of the weather. Because of the weather. Now, that's not a completely stupid thing to say. I mean, we're in, Florida. Today's not the most beautiful day, but Florida has beautiful weather. Arizona has beautiful weather. So certainly people want to go to places. You can see why people would leave Illinois or Minnesota for a state like Texas or Florida. But then I just zinged him. I hit him so hard. I mean, he still hasn't recovered. I said, well, that's very interesting, Paul Krugman. You're saying all these people are leaving the blue states for the weather. There's something I don't understand, Dr. Krugman, and I'm not a professor at MIT, and I don't have a Nobel Prize, and blah, blah, blah. I said, but, and I know, I have a smaller mind than you do and all that. I said, but I just don't get it. If people are leaving the red states for the blue states, then why are people moving from San Diego, California to Houston, Texas? And he was like, blah, blah, blah. He had no response to that, right? So you can see this is a big deal, and that's a good thing that's happening for our red states, and they're picking up ground. Now, I wanted to show you this because we've been through COVID now for the last 2 years, and it's important for us to understand the lesson. By the way, can we all agree on one thing in this room? Never, 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 never again should we allow politicians to shut down our churches, our schools, our hospitals. Never again. Never, never again should we allow that to happen. Never again. It was a catastrophic mistake. And we know that. We know that. And I'm glad you know, what we did to our children and our grandchildren in terms of shutting down our schools was the greatest episode of national child abuse in the history of this country. There were zero health benefits to that, but it did great, great damage to the academic and emotional achievement of our kids. But you can see in this chart, the red states are the states that did it worst. They shut down their businesses, they had high death rates from COVID, they shut down their schools, they did everything wrong. And then you can see the green states are the ones that did it right. Do you notice a pattern there? Right? The states that are the ones that did it right are the states that actually have Republican governors. Do you see that little black? The little black on the far right there? Anybody know what state that is? New Jersey, sorry. I mean, New Jersey got it all wrong. So that's really an important lesson, that our guys did it right and their guys did it wrong. Does this stuff matter? Look at this. Look at these unemployment rates. Look at the difference between the red states and the blue states. What I'm showing you here is the 10 states, and this has been true for the last 2 years. It hasn't really changed at all. The 10 states with the highest unemployment rates, the ones at the bottom, look at that: New Jersey, District of Columbia, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, California. Every one of those states is run by a liberal Democratic governor. Every single one of them. Look at the 10 states with the lowest unemployment rate. Again, doesn't matter what month you look at. This is as of December 2020, but it looks exactly the same if you look at December 2021, or exactly the same if you look at April in 2022. Of the 10 states with the unemployment rates, only one of them, Vermont, has one of the lowest unemployment rates. The low unemployment rate is 3 percentage points lower in the red states than the blue states. Do you think there's something going on there? Or do you think that happened by coincidence? I don't think so. Now, let's move on. One of the big mistakes that we made with COVID was this massive, massive spending. And you know, I love Donald Trump, but we spent too much money. I mean, I told him, you know, Mr. President, we don't have to spend all this money on COVID. All we have to do is just educate people about this virus. But we spent $6 trillion. This is more money, folks, than we spent to fight World War II. And yet still 1 million people died of COVID. Do you think any of this money was spent productively? I mean, it's hard to say that it was. And is it surprising? I'll show you this. This is kind of scary, folks. This is a scary chart. In 2020, for the first time in American history, even more so than during the height of World War II, our government actually spent more money than the entire private sector. We were a more socialist country in 2020 than we were free market. And that is a sad, sad commentary. Today, government is at about 40% of GDP now that COVID's come to a close. But that is a very worrisome trend. All right. Now on taxes, Joe Biden says the solution to all this is to raise taxes, right? Well, let me go back for a minute here. A lot of this spending that you're seeing in this chart, what happened was Biden came in, and what was the first thing that he did? He came into office. There was already $1 trillion of unspent COVID money. Did you know that? When Biden came into office, what was the first thing he did? He used what is it that Rahm Emanuel used to say, Bob, that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So they exploited the crisis of COVID to spend trillions of dollars on programs that we didn't need. And so in 2021, Biden spent $3 trillion. $3 trillion. One was the $1.9 trillion Recovery Act, which was just a blue state bailout bill, and then $1.1 trillion for a sham infrastructure bill, which was just a green energy bill. And by the way, just so I hope nobody thinks I'm some kind of rah-rah Republican, because I'm not. 19 Republicans in the United States Senate voted for the green energy bill. Did you know that? 19 Republicans. So they're as responsible as he is. And so why am I bringing that up? Because you know this. I mean, you're all smart people. You don't even have to listen to me say this, but I'll just say it because it's so obvious, but it's the most important thing that's happening to our economy. Why is inflation out of control? Because of out of control what? Government spending and borrowing and printing money. And what's happening here is we're spending all this money that we don't have. The government has to borrow it, right? Because we don't take in that much tax revenue, thank God. And then how are we financing that debt? By printing money. Now, if you print $3 trillion, what's going to happen to inflation? It's going to go up. I mean, how obvious is this, right? Only the people in the logic-free zone in the Beltway in Washington don't understand this. And so, I mean, Biden and the others say, oh, government spending is not the reason. Yes, government spending is the match that lit the fire, the bonfire of out-of-control inflation. And by the way, again, I want to ask you all a question. Because when I go on Fox News or Fox Business or Larry Kudlow's show, and I say, you know, we have 8 to 8.5% inflation, people get angry at me when I say that. People, you know, I get emails and texts and Steve, why do you keep saying the inflation rate is 8.5%? The government's lying. How many of you think the inflation rate is really only 8.5%? How many of you think it's higher than 8.5%? Yeah, almost everybody does. Because the things we buy, Bob, every day, gas is up 70%, food is up 28%, home heating costs are up 60%. Home furnishings are up 32%. The things that we have to buy, the essentials, are up. So the real inflation rate in the United States that people are feeling, who are living paycheck to paycheck, which is most of us, that inflation rate is 15 to 20%. It's not 8%. Now, can you imagine how high the inflation rate would be if they had passed that god-awful Build Back Better bill? I mean, can you imagine that? We'd be talking about 30% inflation. And can I say something, Bob, something nice about a Democrat? I don't know if that's allowed at this meeting. Thank God for Joe Manchin. He saved our country. Joe Manchin saved our country from that god-awful bill. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going on too long. So I just thought, you know, the Laffer curve, if you cut tax rates, I think Tony Dolan just left, but he was instrumental. I mean, by the way, Tony Dolan is one of my heroes. How cool is it that we had him? He wrote so many of the great speeches for Reagan. But we cut tax. You can see when Reagan came in, that brown line, the tax rate was 70%. 70%. Elizabeth Warren wants to go back to that, by the way. She says we should go back to 70% tax rate. Reagan cut the rate from 70 to 50 to 28%. You see that? 70, 50 down to 28%. That's a big deal. Look what happened to tax revenues. Did they go down or did they go up? They went up. It's amazing, right? And then look at, you can see at the tail end of this chart, you can see the Trump tax cuts. And guess what happened? Tax revenues went up. Why is this so complicated? If you tax something, you get less of it. If you tax something less, you get more of it. So we should be doing another tax cut for sure, not raising our taxes. One of the things we did was he cut the business tax rates. And this is something I showed. This is a kind of very historic chart because I remember Larry Kudlow and I sat down with Donald Trump. I think this was in January of 2016. And we showed him this chart. We said, you know, Donald, we call him Donald back then, we call him Mr. President obviously now, we said, look at this, those blue pillars you see, those are the international rates all over the world, and you can see they go down, 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 and that black line across the top, that's the US. So we were facing a situation when Trump came into office where our tax rate was like 20% higher than all the countries we were competing with. And we showed this to Trump. I remember, and I said to, you know, Larry and I said to Donald Trump, we think you should cut the tax rate to 20% so we can be at the, you know, somewhere near the international average. Because that's like a 20% Head Start program for every country that we're competing with. I'll never forget. Trump sat back in his chair. I love Donald Trump, by the way. He's just a very colorful guy. He said, no, I don't want to do that. He said, I don't like that plan. We said, Donald, we got to get the rate down. Look at that. We're at 40, they're at 20. I'll never forget. Trump said, I want 15%. And Larry and I said, we love this guy. Okay, let's go with, and we actually didn't get 15, but we did get 20. By the way, I know I'm going on too long, but this is a great Trump story. So from that day on till December 22nd of 2017, when we finally passed the tax bill, we never knew if we were going to get it. Every meeting Trump was in, whether it was Paul Ryan or Mitch McConnell or whoever it was, any of the lawmakers, any speech he has, I want 15%. And he'd tell Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, don't even bother to bring me a tax bill unless I've got that 15% business tax rate. So I'll never forget that. It was December 22nd. We got like literally 24 hours to get that thing passed, or it's not going to happen. We're very nervous. We're sitting over at the White House waiting for Mitch McConnell to come back. And he finally comes in and he says, he's sad. He said, well, Mr. President, I'm sorry I failed you. I know you really want that 15% tax rate, and I did everything I could. And I failed you, Mr. President. I'm so sorry. I couldn't get you 15%, but I did get you 20%. And is that okay? And Trump jumps out. I'll take that in a New York minute. And what's the lesson of that story? What is Donald Trump's famous book? The Art of the Deal. This guy is one of the great. I submit that if he had taken Larry Kudlow's my advice at 20%, we wouldn't have gotten 20%. We would have gotten 25%. It's because he asked Bob for 15% that we got 20%. The guy's brilliant. I learned so much from him. Okay, so that's the story with the taxes. We cut the taxes. By the way, when we cut the taxes, guess what happened to corporate income tax revenues? They shot up. We imported $1 trillion into this country because the United States became a crazy. This is for my friends who want to get rid of the income tax. I'm with you. This is, dear IRS, please take me off your mail list. Don't we all feel like that? Wouldn't that be a great thing if we could do that? And we should get rid of the federal income tax. I'm all on board. How many of you like the fair tax? Raise your hand. Let's get rid of the federal income tax. Think of how much that would do. All right, energy policy. This is something I'm so demoralized about, because when we used to talk to Donald Trump about energy policy, I wrote several books on energy policy, and I knew we were in the middle of this incredible shale revolution that literally, you can see on that green line, we tripled in 10 years, tripled the amount of oil production in the United States because of what happened with fracking and horizontal drilling, these incredible innovations. Remember, by the way, when the left used to say that we're running out of oil? America's not running out of oil, we're running into it. We got so much oil, we don't know. We have 250 years worth of oil, 300 years worth of natural gas, 500 years worth of coal. We should be using all of it, right? All of it. It's the way to defund the Russians and the Saudis and all these other countries. So you can see, we used to say to Donald Trump, if you go all in on American energy, we can be energy independent. This is a typical Trump thing. He goes, Steve, I don't want America to be energy independent. I want America to be energy dominant. And look at that chart. Look at the very tip of the green line. That's right at the end of the Trump presidency. We became the dominant country in the world in energy production. Isn't that a beautiful picture? I mean, that's incredible. The red line is Russia. The yellow line is Saudis. We were out producing them. Now, look at the Biden energy plan. Is that insanity? They want to take us from 12 million barrels a day down to 0. That's their plan. Well, by the way, when Biden says I'm doing everything I can to reduce gas prices, that's a lie. They want high gas prices. They hate oil and gas. They don't want people to drive cars. This is just disgusting. I'm here to tell you that line, the peak of that, if Donald Trump were still president, we'd be producing 15 million barrels of oil a day. Instead, under Biden, we're producing 11 million barrels. That's a 4 million barrel gap. I'm not too good at math, but at about $100 a barrel, that means almost $500 billion, Bob. This country is losing $1.5 billion a day because of this insane war on American oil and gas. And it's doing great, great damage to our economy. And when you have less of something, what happens to its price? It goes up. This is the other thing that's driving the inflation rate, is the war on American energy, and we have to get back to producing all of the above, right? Everything we've got. Now, people, we got to worry about pollution. Pollution. This is something that a lot of people don't realize. I love to show this chart because the United States has by far the cleanest air in the world. All we have been doing for the last 50 years is cleaning up our air. Most Americans, especially kids, they don't learn this. They think, if you ask kids, they think the air is dirtier than it was 50 years ago. No, look at one of the biggest contaminants in the air, emissions, is lead. We've reduced our lead emissions by 90%. We've reduced our sulfur emissions by 60%. We've, carbon monoxide. By the way, just so you know this, because I know this is a very politically incorrect thing to say, they'll probably, the misinformation director will probably call this hate speech or something, but it happens to be true. Carbon monoxide is a pollution. Carbon monoxide is a pollution. Carbon dioxide is not a pollution. Nobody gets sick from carbon. In fact, without carbon dioxide, there would be no life on Earth. So the real pollutions we are reducing. And that's something, by the way, most Americans have no idea because the media never reports that. But this is my favorite one. So these are the countries that signed the Paris Climate Accord. By the way, of all the great things Trump did, to me, one of his greatest achievements was pulling America out of the anti-America Paris Climate Accord, right? He had the guts to do that. And the first thing that Biden did when he got back into office, Bob, was to bring us back into this stupid thing. Now, all these other countries made these promises. Oh, yeah, we'll cut our emissions. These are all the countries that are still, that never left the Paris Climate Accord. And look at it. Not one of them is reaching their targets. Not one of them. Gee, who would have ever thought countries wouldn't comply with the treaty? That never happens. So, Trump was right about this. Now, here's the most interesting thing. And I will give an autographed copy of my book to anyone who can tell me the answer to this question. What country of the top 35 economic producers in the world, which country over the last 10 years has reduced its carbon emissions the most? Wow! Raise your hand if you knew the answer to that. Well, Bob, you've got a very well-educated, because most Americans think we've increased our carbon emissions the most. We have reduced our carbon emissions more than any other country. Now, for a bonus question, there's a two-word answer. How is it that the United States has reduced its carbon emissions? Natural gas. Natural gas. Natural gas is a wonder fuel. It's abundant. It's made in America. It's cheap. And it's clean burning. So somebody has to tell me, why is the left against? Why are they against natural gas? Why are they against nuclear power? Why is it the only forms of energy they want to use are the ones that don't work? Right? And by the way, I'm here to tell you, you've heard it first here at AMAC. And by the way, what you've done, Bob, with this organization is fantastic. I mean, let's give Bob what you have done with this organization is amazing in such a short period of time. But we need to get 20 million people in this organization. So this is just an amazing thing. Okay, I'm running out of time, so I got to move on. But none of these other countries are doing anything about climate. And by the way, which country in the world is by far the biggest polluter? China. No other country comes close. Even if the United States didn't exist as a country, even if it were vaporized off the planet, it would make no difference with respect to global emissions because China and India and all these other countries are going whole. China is building like 100 new coal plants right now. Does anybody in this room really think that President Xi cares about climate change? I mean, seriously. There's only two people in the world who believe that to be true. President Biden and John Kerry, and nobody else believes that kind of nonsense. So we are involved in crippling our energy supply, which is endangering our national security and our economy. Okay, a few more points. I want to just brag about Trump for a minute because our policies of deregulating the economy, better trade deals, getting the border secure, cutting taxes, all of these things had a dramatic impact on middle-class America. So you can see this is just how much middle-class, median household income went under Trump. In 4 years. It's amazing. The median income under Trump went up more in 4 years than in the combined 8 years that Biden was in office and in that Obama was in office in the first year of Biden. So in 9 years of Biden and Obama, incomes went up less than they did under 4 years under Trump. That's pretty impressive. But this is something I'm really proud of, and I know President Trump is. I am so sick and tired of people saying that Donald Trump is a racist. Aren't you? It is an outrageous slur. There is no president, even including Ronald Reagan, who did more to help minorities in terms of economic advancement than Donald J. Trump. And look at this. Look at what happened to the black unemployment rate. Look what happened to Hispanic unemployment rate. It's incredible. We took the unemployment rate for minorities down to the lowest level ever recorded. Does that sound like the policy of a racist? We took the poverty rate, the percentage of Americans that are poor, we took that rate down to the lowest level in the history of this country. Those are amazing statistics. I know Trump was very proud of it. I wish he had talked about it more. Just kind of to sum up, there's the inflation. You know, we had tame inflation. You can see how many are old enough to remember like 16, 17% mortgage interest rates under Jimmy Carter and 9 and 10, 12. I think inflation hit at one point 13%. If Biden continues with these policies, inflation is not going to go down. It's not going to be transitory. It's not going to be temporary. It's going to get worse. It is going to get worse. And I'm not here, I hate to say that because I'm a pretty optimistic guy, but I'm seeing what's happening in this country and it just breaks my heart. It does. This is a great, great country. And what we're seeing is Jimmy Carter times 2, right? I never thought I'd say there would be a worse president than Jimmy Carter, but right now, so far, based on 16 months of data, Joe Biden is the worst president in American history. I mean, he just is. And I hate to say that, but can anybody think of anything he's done right on the economy? Seriously, I can't think of one thing that has gone right under Biden. I just thought, because you guys are interested in this stuff, look at where the inflation is in the economy. Now, this predates Biden coming to office, but it's so interesting. You can look at like the two on the far left. The two industries that have had the highest inflation rate are education and healthcare. Now, think about that. Education and healthcare. What is similar about those two industries? Who runs those industries? The government. The government does. They've done a great job. Like, I always ask my liberal friends, why do we have the government play such a large role in education and healthcare? Because those are two of our most important industries for our future and for our well-being. And my liberal friends say, oh, we have to have government play a big part in healthcare and education so we can make it affordable. They've done a damn good job of it, haven't they? I mean, all it does is go up and up and up and up. And the worst idea I've heard, by the way, and Biden has had a lot of bad ideas, no, we should not forgive $1.5 trillion student loan debt. Hell no, we shouldn't do that. Okay, I think that's probably it. Oh, I want to just end on this, if I may. America is not a systemically racist country. America is not a systemically racist country. That is incredible. When I heard Joe Biden say that in his State of the Union speech, I mean, it made me physically ill that an American president would say that about this great country. And this is just showing you what's happened with income, the family incomes of Americans by ethnicity. And look at the people at the top. That yellow line, by the way, is white Americans. Look at that. Indian Americans, Taiwanese Americans, Filipino Americans, Chinese Americans, Japanese Americans, Pakistanis. Wait a minute, they're brown-skinned. They're brown-skinned. How can that happen in a country that's racist? Asians actually have a higher household income than whites do. That doesn't happen. Nowhere else in the world does that happen. But the United States of America. By the way, Hispanic incomes have been rising very rapidly. We're going to see in this big election that's coming up in November, we're going to see record numbers of Hispanic Americans vote Republican. They're coming over to our side because they're seeing what these people are doing. So Hispanic Americans are doing incredible. Even first-generation immigrants who come from Africa do well in this country. So I'm just sick of that lie about America. So I'm going to just stop because I think my time is up. I'm over a minute 40 over. And just simply say this. This is a country we've been through, bad presidents. The United States are incredibly practical people. They are not going to tolerate this much longer. We're seeing a revolt happen around the country. Just look at the primaries that have happened so far. We've had about, 14 or 15 states that have already had their primaries this year. Amazing statistic. The Republican turnout in Republican primaries from every state, from Pennsylvania to all of North Carolina, all these states, Republican primary participation is up 38% this year. Democratic turnout is up 3%. We're gonna wipe these people out in November of 19. They're going to pay a high price for what they've done to our country. Now, my friend Larry Kudlow, you all know Larry. He and I worked together for Trump, and he's one of my best friends. He was the best man at my wedding. He likes to say, at the end of his show every day, he says, "The cavalry is coming." The cavalry is coming. And he's right. The cavalry is coming. People always say, do you think Build Back Better bill is really dead? And I say, well, it's not really dead until that wonderful day when we can have a big celebration around the country when we take the gavel away from Nancy Pelosi in the House of Representatives. Okay, folks, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be with you. Have a great conference.